Hey folks, welcome to the 12th episode of Double Feature Horror Show. We've got a really interesting one for you tonight. We are, for the first time, doing a viewer request. We are covering 1 hour photo, and we are coming up with an entirely original topic of unpopular horror opinions, filched from absolutely nowhere and in no way related to the sloppy second stream that happens to run on a Tuesday at about 9. I have no idea why people make the connection, frankly. It's a bit insulting, really. It's a bit insulting. Because this is a strong, proud, original stream, you know, and
absolutely.
Absolutely, indeed.
And,
not only... Sorry, man.
Well, I was going to say, unlike the sloppy second show, we actually go through unpopular opinions on this show.
Absolutely.
So
exactly. No breach of Trades Descriptions Act whatsoever.
I'll just be the voice of dissent then, and just be like, unpopular opinions has simply outgrown the opinions dynamic and is now in its transitionary second phase.
Get your tongue out of AA's arsehole.
It's just flat out unpopular.
Ooh, savagery.
Did I use my outside mind voice?
Well, we've not only got strong topics here, folks, we have got a very strong lineup. How strong, you ask? Well, our guests include, will this work? Lat Time Guy. Huh?
Wow.
My God,
Lat Time Guy. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not bad. Can I just ask, where did you get that photo of me?
I have never seen a less representative photo of a stream guest than
Wait till you
that.
see mine.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. It's a, what can I say? Security on Google Drive isn't what it was. But you doing okay, that crime guy?
Yeah, I'm very good. Yeah, I'm very good. Thanks. I now need to get 2-factor authentication. So thank you.
We're also enjoyed by Haryan Gláeddyv.
Oh, look at that.
How are you doing, sir?
It's not even the right helmet.
I think it's a wonderful helmet.
I'll take it. Look at that.
Oh,
That is after a year of doing 100 sit-ups and press-ups every day.
Oh, dear, the Simp Life didn't choose me. I didn't choose the Simp Life. The Simp Life chose me. Is that right?
You can do it too, Kings.
And how's everything outside of the gym? How's that going?
That's all going rather well, thank you. Also, what up, my drillers, etc.
Oh
dear.
We got to get it in. It's all falling apart format wise. And lastly, a first time guest, not so obvious.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh my!
I thought that was just for your private collection.
The absolute Chad that is a Photoshop of me. Yes.
You see, now you don't get this. You don't get this on unpopular opinions, do you?
I mean, like maybe at one point the shoulders and the traps on the top there might have been fairly accurate, but damn, them pecs.
Oh my.
Impeccable, yes.
Impeccable,
Nice.
impeccable good taste. I'm starting to believe that you have gone through this intro lineup purely to titillate yourself, Proper Horror Show.
I'm trying to get that John D audience. I'm just trying to leech that as well, you know.
You should just put pictures of carrots up then.
You want
carrots.
You want the gay simp audience, as it were, or as we shall now refer to them, the gimps.
There's a family stream sometimes.
It's just a fusion of the two words. I don't know what possible inference that you could draw from my statement there that was degenerate in any way.
Yeah.
I'm getting Pulp Fiction vibes.
Well, you know, it's like that story about Samuel Johnson when he was approached by fine society ladies upon completion of his dictionary, and they wanted to congratulate him for not including any filthy words in his dictionary. And he, of course, replied, "Well, thank you very much, and I'm delighted to know you looked for them."
Hey.
Nice.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know. I was going to do shops of sort of horror related plays on names, and then that abomination came into my head, and I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna make those instead.
Good choice.
You do have an obsession with the male form, a bit like D, but wow.
It's just
Connoisseur.
proving that men can be beautiful as well, Haryan. Even you, with copious
Well-
amounts of photo editing.
If that was true, then the mirror, then I'd believe you if that any time I looked in a mirror I looked like that. But hey,
Well, you know, exception doesn't make the rule, does it?
that's true. You got me.
All I'm going to say is proper horror show. Are you sure? Are you sure?
Mhm.
Those pictures? Are you sure?
I'm just disappointed that Proper Horror Show didn't do a mock-up of herself with one of those male bodies
Oh
underneath.
my god! Yeah, where was yours?
What do you know? I can't compare really. I couldn't.
Right, chat. If you want to see that in the intro of next week's episode, type 1 now. Proper horror show in the male form.
It's just, you know, if I don't know if we really want to try and get me going all Spartan. I think that would be probably very confusing for many people.
Very interesting.
See, I'm feeling the votes being rigged here. How are you doing, chat? You were nicely disturbed from that. I think British Knight, have we got you in the... see you for the first time on this stream. Very nice to see you here. Really, guys?
Yes,
Chat seems to want it. That's all I can say. That's what I'm seeing.
they feel
Oh.
robbed this week.
Oh,
You can't
Richard,
say
you've
no
got-
to the chat.
you've
No,
got
no.
my back, and I appreciate it.
I love democracy.
I don't think the system works.
Yeah.
Enough Star Wars posting. We have a first time topic that I think I would like to make a regular feature. See how it goes. I'm sure we will generate plenty of unpopular horror opinions as we go on. So I just thought it would be kind of fun for us to start off with a bit of light heresy in the horror world by throwing out an opinion that would be, you know, fairly controversial, but worth discussing briefly. So I guess I'll throw the floor open. Is there anyone who wants to go first with a unpopular horror opinion?
Go on then.
Yeah, good lad. Good
Seeing
lad.
as I was the last one in with the opinion. Right, okay, here we go. So this film, it got on Rotten Tomatoes an 18% tomato meter and a 34% audience score. But it is my opinion that Doom 2005 is actually not a bad movie. In fact, I would go as far as to say it was a good movie.
Yeah, but it wasn't a good Doom movie, was it?
It was a good movie.
I enjoyed a very poorly trained Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson charging around, getting mutated, and weird first-person perspectives with Carl Urban as much as the next guy. But like, I don't think I could go as far as to say it was a good Doom film. That's all I'll say. Like, it was an okay film.
I said it was a good movie.
It was passable.
It was fun. I'll call it fun.
All right, then.
It was.
Okay.
It was no Pandorum.
Yeah, I can't be mad at you for that because I had a great time. I wasn't particularly scared, but I was laughing my head off. You know, Carl Urban and the Rock's fight at the end, and the Semper Fi melon farmer. You know, that's worth a titter.
I just love the guy in the wheelchair. The effects that went into that. I love the effects on that. Obviously, it was around about this time that the Rock wasn't really as sort of mainstream as he is now in terms of like the films he's in, because I think he'd just come off the back of the Scorpion King not long after.
Oh, God.
Oh, the abomination that was.
Yeah. Now
What an abortion of a film.
Now, see, I didn't come out and say that was a good movie, but I think it was probably one of the first like films that I saw with The Rock in that I considered good, because obviously I grew up like a certain host of an unpopular show that's aired around 9 o'clock at night. I grew up watching wrestling, so some of my biggest memories of wrestling was some of the historic matches that The Rock had taken part in, like WrestleMania 17, against Hulk Hogan, just to name a couple of them. And so obviously I was interested in sort of how he would transfer onto the big screen. And it was, I really enjoyed the Rock's portrayal of Sarge in Doom. Fun little fact: when I was looking through some trivia for this film, and in the film he regularly refers to the Marines as soldiers, but apparently in real life, if you call a Marine a soldier, they get really offended.
Yes, they do. In the same way, a soldier is a very, very particular job. When you talk about the military, you are not a soldier unless you are infantry, typically.
Yeah.
And you can still be a soldier if you like going up the ranks and that sort of thing. You can have a sergeant at arms who's a soldier, but you like. If you're someone who works in logistics and you get called a soldier, you're a bit like, what? And the soldiers will get offended if somebody else calls the loggy, someone who should know better, I should point out. Like, most of the time, civvies get dismissed as just being ignorant anyway. But if you should know better, then you're going to get in trouble.
That's it, yeah. So I found that quite interesting. There was also there were quite a few scenes that were cut because of graphic violence, and also you mentioned the first person shooter scene. Apparently that took 14 days to shoot. That one segment. Apparently so. That one segment took 2 weeks to film, and apparently there is a longer version of that in the unedited version. So Snyder cut. That's all I'm saying.
Rotten Tomatoes would judge you, but I don't. I'd stand with the Doom movie. Good on you.
I would. I mean, I don't know if I'd call it a horror film in the traditional sense. It's definitely an action flick. But
it's listed as hang on a second. It was listed as sci-fi horror. Hold on, because I will debunk you on that one. A sci-fi action. Okay, so a sci-fi horror action movie. So it has horror in there. So
okay, just about you're vindicated for a second.
Yeah, it's in the middle.
I would rather watch that than I think Mark, you mentioned Pandorum, and that was one I was so disappointed by.
You were disappointed by it? I really enjoyed it. I mean, Dennis Quaid hams up pretty much every role he's in, but in a great way. Like, I really enjoyed that. Although the obviously the ending is complete and utter tosh, and the story is somewhat subpar. But I mean, there were some twists in there I didn't see coming, that sort of thing. I enjoyed the film. What was wrong with it for you?
I just did not get into the world building. I felt the creatures were just a bit too generic. I don't remember connecting to anything in the way that I did with, say, Doom or Event Horizon, where I was just a lot more compelled by some of the actors. I mean, I've got a weak spot for Sam Neill, to be honest. So
fair enough.
That might have swung me. I was maybe making some unfair comparisons.
I mean, I would say Pandorum is an underrated gem in my mind, but it's obviously not quite up there with the horror greats, but it definitely deserved, I think, more than it got. I mean, there was that whole dude who was living off of mold and then tried to eat them and all sorts, and I thought the motion of the ship involving the sort of the opening and closing on a timed nature of the what's it called, hydroponics sort of section where they were all kind of hiding out. I thought it was all quite clever world building, and the fact that they were all underwater was quite good. Sorry, spoilers to anyone who hasn't seen the film, but
shocking,
there's
shocking.
Still enough in there that you can enjoy the film. I haven't spoiled too much, but speaking of Event Horizon, which I'm sure you've probably talked about to death, but and the idea of a Snyder cut for or just a director's cut for Doom. They tried to do a director's cut of Event Horizon because, of course, you remember it was all very heavily censored when it was initially released.
Alas.
They used there's the scene which is very, very briefly used of what it's like in hell, for instance, for Event Horizon.
Right.
That scene is actually minutes longer, and they used a set of a mixture of body effect artists, contortionists, and porn stars in order to achieve the desired effect with that particular scene. And I like, there's the macabre, morbid part of me that just wants to see what horrific scene they put together with that. And also, none of them had been told before they arrived on set what the scene they were going to be filming was. So can you imagine you've got like this job, you turn up, you're like, like what scene for this sci-fi epic horror that we're going to do? And they're like, get naked. We're going to cover you in blood and syrup juice and have you do all this weird crap, you know?
Syrup juice. Like corn
like,
syrup? The same stuff they use for pig's blood and carry?
Yeah.
Same reference, yes.
Sweet. Just slid it in.
Oh, grim.
Smooth.
I thought I'd do it quickly. I mean, Charity got us our Scream reference within 4 minutes last time. I thought
It's true. 15 minutes this time. Well done.
We need a going to time the Scream references.
we do. I don't know. I like the element of surprise that it could happen any moment.
I've
Yeah.
never actually watched Scream.
What?
To be fair, I didn't until I started this, so don't feel too bad.
Okay, noted.
Isn't it it's like a lampoon of other horror media that then became a cult classic in its own right?
In a way, yeah.
But it was actually good.
Yeah, I describe it as an in-genre critique. A sort of, guys, this is how you're messing up and this is how you do it properly. But I will not take us off path. Haryan, would you like to share an unpopular horror opinion?
Yeah, jump scares have to go. All of them. They are the worst thing to happen to horror in both games, film, and TV. They are.
Oh.
They ruin it. Absolutely ruin it. Yeah.
All of them?
All of them. All of
Oh.
them. Name me a good one. See, you
mean,
can't do it.
If we're talking about in terms of like across all horror media, which includes games, for instance,
Yes.
if you had played the first Dead Space, which was full of jump scares, and then you played the second Dead Space, about halfway through, you end up going back onto the Ishimura in order to, which is in the middle of it being decontaminated and deep cleaned. There are almost no enemy encounters for that entire segment, and the very light use of jump scares in there and the flashbacks he had are very, very effective.
Can we get F's in the chat for Mustachio?
F's for Mustachio.
Yes.
I've never played Dead Space, but I the rising tension's fine, and you can let that go.
Right.
And if you want to call that a jump scare, fair. But a lot of jump scares are just kind of put in films, TV, and games for absolutely no reason.
Okay.
You could say overused or cheap, but it's
Yes, and I'd want them all gone because of that.
You say name a good jump scare.
Yes.
Literally just the other week, I was talking about how I had the worst jump scare experience through Carrie at the end.
There it is.
Scene. That hit me to this day. Like, do you know, I still jumped when I was watching these films back because it just psychologically was in there. The embarrassment, the shame of like gripping these armchair arms, screaming like the literal 10-year-old I was around my best mate's house in front of his mum and his younger sister, who were both fine.
But that's what I mean. It's like it's in a dream that in both of them.
It had the desired effect.
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's cheap. I still think it's cheap in Carrie.
We have our film of this evening, 1 hour photo, which has one jump scare in it in the entire film, and it is perfectly situated.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call that a jump scare, to be fair. Do you mean the bit where his eyes start bleeding?
No. We're going to get to that.
We're going to get spoilers.
I think, well, we're going to spoil the entire movie.
Yeah.
We give people enough warning. We say horror homework. You've got a week to watch it, so no one can be surprised if we spoil the entire film, and we're going to it.
Yeah. But I wouldn't count that as a jump scare, really. Like a jump scare is when something pops out from off screen at you, usually, or is hidden behind something. He just opens his eyes. And it's like, oh, spooky, but I wouldn't say it's a jump scare. I'm thinking more, if you've played the new Amnesia, the developers called them, what they call them, fear flashes instead of jump scares, because they know how cheap jump scares sound. But randomly, your screen will just have a load of crap thrown on it with loud noises put in it. It's really cheap. And if kind of that's the worst of jump scares, I don't think it's made up for by the best of jump scares, so I'd rather they're all just gone.
If it was none or as many as we've got now, I'd probably go with none, because I agree with you. It's the horror equivalent of the fart joke.
No. Like,
no.
This is like saying, oh, there are good action films out there which are really good, but like there are so many cheap, low-budget action films which are so crap, or ones which haven't stood the test of time. Let's just get rid of all action in all films, because it's not worth it for the highs. Because it's a question of like, how high do the highs go, not how low do the lows go. Like people can always make something crap. It's but you want to have give people options across the whole of their media. I thought, for instance, in 1 Hour Photo, it was very well put. It definitely caught me off guard. I wouldn't say it made me jump, but it made me go, so sort of like, oh, what is this? I didn't expect it to be quite so graphic, after this whole thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's all a matter of context. It's all a matter of timing and the direction and the nature of the jump scare itself, because there are many different types of jump scares. It's not just an Amnesia style, we're going to drop a translucent JPEG on your screen right now.
That happens all the time in games, though, Mark. It has to stop.
Okay.
But the idea of a jump scare, in my view, is that in that moment, it's supposed to give you and the character the same reaction of obviously the element of surprise. Both you and the character were aren't expecting it. So in that very moment, you can sort of relate to the character in that regard. Obviously, 1 Hour Photo is different because we'll get to that. But in the standard horror film, boom, jump scare, character, main protagonist, and you, the viewer at home, okay, you can relate in that moment. There is a need for it, but to completely room 101 it's a bit extreme,
But moving beyond video games, which is also a different environment, looking at film specifically, as the Enrieb says in chat, there are jump scares that you could classify as jump scares in The Thing, especially towards the end when things are getting a lot more frantic. Like Palmer's death right near the end, where he shoves his hand in his face. This is it's a jump scare, but like that's the whole point. Is like the whole thing is becoming a lot more intense, and I think it would be weaker without it.
Yeah, well, the thing with jump scares is they either seem to be the best part of a shit film, a bad film, or a mediocre part of a good film. So I just don't there's no need for them then, in my opinion.
I think
I've seen some of them.
You're full of it.
What do you mean?
I just think you're full of it. I don't think that you're making a critique which is in any way valuable or viable.
It's not my fault you like cheap films.
The Thing is not a cheap film.
Well, it wasn't for its time.
Ask the studio; they were not happy. I think that's respectable. It's pretty controversial. I don't think I'd go along with it, but you make a fine case. I do feel it's a crutch for a lot of movies at the moment. And you're already at the kind of post jump scare.
Okay, I've got a question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh no, sorry. Finish what you're saying. Sorry.
Like I was going to say, they've got their own logic, and we've already basically adjusted to them. So like you got the old mirror scare,
Yeah.
which would be, so if you don't know what I mean, it's that there were so many instances of someone would go to the bathroom, and it was almost always a bathroom, and they'd open their cabinet, which was had a mirror on the door, and it was ajar. And when they closed that, the reflection would show something behind them. And that happens so often that we've now sort of got the anti-mirror scare, where they set you up for that and they don't do it, and then they get you just afterwards. And it's like The Conjuring does this amazingly, where it plays with where you are expecting the jumps to come, and it sets you up and it skips and sets up and skips, and then it delivers.
Right,
I
okay.
mean,
So, Haryan, if you're sitting
Yes.
opposite Paul Merton and he says, what do you want to put in room 101? And you've put the jump scares on there and he
Yes.
agrees, boom, down it goes.
Right.
What would you replace jump scares with?
Tension releases.
Okay.
So, all right. So let's take Bly Manor. You've got the I want to call it the ER ghost because I've heard EFAP too much, but the ghost with like the glowing eyes.
Oh, okay. Eric.
That they're constant jump scares. I just kind of have him like, you see this figure with glowing eyes in the background. She notices it, but she doesn't go. And it's always like in your face. And it'd be creepy, because the best parts of Bly Manor was the creepy stuff kind of in the background. And as long as you know that she knows it's there, that's kind of all you need for it. But the fact that it's constantly jump scary, I was like, bit cheap.
Right. Okay, you actually make a good point with Bly Manor, because the first couple of jump scares were a bit like, oh my god, but after a while it became less of a jump scare, and it was just like you were expecting it every time, and it was like, oh, he's there. Okay.
I kind of liked it that you got tension with the mirror, but you get the same thing even if it's not a jump scare anyway. So just to level with you, I kind of like the jump scares in that one a bit. Obviously,
It's all falling apart.
Well, I was obviously being hyperbolic. It's unpopular opinions.
Unpopular horror opinions.
Exactly.
It is an entirely different copyright entity.
But as I say, I think they'd be better with the jump scares. But then when it gets to the Lady of the Lake and she grabs whoever's in the way's neck, I think they work as a jump scare there as well. So it's kind of like what you replace that with. You can't really replace it with anything. So I don't mind it when it works and makes sense, but quite a lot of the time it's just like, this is there for the audience's benefit to, make them poo themselves. It's like, all right, that's not great. So
not so obvious. What's going to get you booted out of any horror community?
Most music in horror films and media is a crutch, used to artificially build tension where actually it detracts.
It is the equivalent of the laugh track on an unfunny comedy, maybe.
I don't know if I'd go so far as to do that, but and laugh tracks also have their place in particular comedies. But the music, again, it's hard for me to pass, because The Thing is my favorite horror film of all time, right? And it has that really, really minimalistic synth beat and other stuff in there, and some synth strings as well. And I found that was very effective. But a lot of the film has no music whatsoever, whereas I find that a lot of other horror films can also, and especially horror games as well, they'll just be like this really dramatic music, and you're just going, really? Especially if it's in a few of the first scenes of the film, you're like, this is not going to come to anything. How many times have we watched a film where there's nothing really untoward happening in the scene, but the music is building, so you're expecting something to happen, and then there's a knock on the door, the music cuts, and then he opens the door and it's just a normal person, right? So I feel like the music in those kinds of contexts detracts from the I suppose the set building and the character building and the writing, for lack of a better term, that would convey that information better than just putting some spooky synth strings over a scene, right?
Talking about games, Dead Space, did that have music, like backing music? Because
Not really. I mean,
No.
only when you had to be attacked first, and then it would cut in, and then you'd be in the frantic mode. But it's very, very rarely actual environmental music, right?
Yeah, because I just remember when you were playing it, I don't really remember there being many sort of backtracks. Although,
I mean, it was quite jank. Like the idea was that, if you ran away from an enemy far enough, the music would stop and you'd think that it was over, but it isn't. But like it was also abusable in many ways. I mean, I think it's important to distinguish between, as well, the difference between video games and films in this regard, where in films everything is controlled, whereas in video games you've got to make concessions.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I was going to say about video games in particular is that it's less suspense, tension release. I think that Haryan was mentioning. So, like, very rarely do you get a video game where the music will build up and then nothing happens. My mind is just sort of taking me to the Resident Evil 8 gameplays that I've been watching recently. The music in that really comes about when there's action scenes when you're fighting, but as soon as the action is over, the music dies down. There's no sort of false sense of impending danger in that regard. Whereas with horror films, the music or the backing tracks can convey the oh God, I can't get my words out. The thought that there might be some danger out ahead, and then obviously nothing happens. And like you say, almost like the anti-mirror jump scare. The music builds up, nothing happens, and then after a few seconds, boom, then it happens. I'm kind of with you on that one, NSO. I'm kind of with you.
I think there's a lot of crossover between NSO and Haryan's opinion.
I was going to bring
a lot of times it's like Mark Commode calls this cattle prod horror, where it goes quiet and then suddenly foghorn in your ear, sudden image. And it's like, it wasn't that hard to do that, was it, guys? Come on now. It's not actually scary. You just burst my eardrum. Come on now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because most jump scares will have like a string sting or something like that in it as well. They'll have something to blast in your ears, and it's just trying to overload your senses and make you go, it's like, great. Which is what I don't like about it. It's just because I don't mind being scared. Obviously, I'm watching / playing a horror film game, so I'm there to get scared, really. But then when it's just if your scare is just like a quick like that and it's over, and there's tension can build up all it likes. That's the best part about it. It's just whatever the payoff is. I think you need to do a bit better than a music sting and then a scare. And I think tension builds up best when there is at least little music, but no music. It's probably better as well. Because I'm thinking I know it's a game again, but thinking to Soma, that I think the only time there's music in that is when you're being chased by some monster.
Yeah.
When you're sneaking around, there's no music. You just hear the gargling sounds of the dying monsters, the underwater crap like that. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose when it comes to the music though, it almost does sort of prime you and get you prepared, doesn't it? Whereas if there was none of that in at all, almost like like there was no canned laughter, you're kind of having to figure it out yourself and and almost keep yourself on your toes. I mean,
I mean, suspense work.
There are moments where there can be music which builds suspense, but it's very, very difficult to do. There are times when music is there to intensify a particular scene. The traditional chase sort of thing where it's just building and building and building and building, and there's maybe a heart rhythm motif in the music which is just constantly accelerating. And so you're kind of there on the edge of your seat waiting to see whether or not this person gets added to the body count or escapes to join the protagonist, right? And there's certainly a place for music, but I would personally like to see a reduction in music for music's sake, because we don't know what else to put in the scene to make it spooky.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen a reduction in the music in Carrie, especially the suit shopping and girl exercise scenes. God,
I enjoyed that. That's like it's a weird type of nostalgia for something that I literally never lived through.
No, they could have kept the scenes, but just my God.
Well, change the music. Well, change the music choice to the suit scene definitely, and take out the bit where they randomly speed it up as well. But but no, I'd agree generally with the music thing. In horror, best way to build up tension, especially, is just don't have music. Because if it's just empty, it leaves your brain to kind of fill in a lot of the gaps. That music can enhance it as well in some ways, but yeah,
it shouldn't be there like canned laughter to sort of do the heavy lifting that direction and characterization and framing should do.
Yeah, it should enhance the scene, not kind of tell you this is when you're supposed to be scared, this is when there's supposed to be tension raising. Oh, put the music in, that'll help. So I remember back to Butterfly Kiss as well, when the scene where he's filming himself to try and kill Peeping Tom, or at least fight him. There's nothing. All there is the stuff coming from the camera. There's no music, nothing, and it's great. And that's a jump scare as well.
Oh yes,
yeah.
I mean, they did have to get one in. I think it's maybe contractually obliged on even on a very meta fan footage film. Guys, you're far too reasonable and convincing on this, I'm afraid. I expected some absolute heresy, but you're making good cases. Okay.
Yeah, I don't. Like I just like to think that my opinion was unpopular at the beginning, but I'm just so suave with this whole thing that you're just utterly convinced.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Well, to be fair, he's got a lot of experience with unpopular opinions, you know.
Yeah, I mean, somehow you've managed to turn us. I don't know. I don't know how you turned so many guys. How'd that come up? Sorry, I'm used to
turning guys is my speciality.
Oh,
dear,
grim.
dear. Shocking.
You did make me straight, to be fair.
So I will throw out a thought I had that I feel is moderately disallowable in the horror community. I would say that Friday the 13th is entirely skippable.
Get Out.
Fight me.
Yeah, that remake was terrible. You're right.
I think the remake is one of the best ones in the series. But honestly, seriously, I think Friday the 13th doesn't get its stuff together until part 3 at the earliest. Part 1 is a mess. It's all the cliches that Scream is taking the mick out of. I mean,
are you okay? So when you say, sorry, just to elaborate, when you say Friday the 13th, are you talking about the series, the franchise, or are you just talking about the first film?
I'm talking about the first film, the 1980 Sean Cunningham directed, slightly sloppy Kevin Bacon starring. Kind of a mess, if we're honest.
My wife will say Get Out because of Kevin Bacon. She loves him. Well, yes. However, I rescind my Get Out. You can. I'm more of the opinion that it doesn't start until part 4. Although part 3 is not too bad, but part 4 is hands down is my favorite.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Yeah. I just okay. So I'm getting some pushback. Here, and that's fine. But when you rewatch it, it's like you've got some really bad like body drop effects that make like really no sense. But there's lots of good stuff. Like the Kevin Bacon death is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
You get it's Family Stream. You get some amazing bobs in there. Only one, but they're the ones you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
But your big problem is, and I won't drop the big spoiler that anyone who's seen Scream knows, but the finale is so badly done. Like it's 20 minutes, and it's very clear. Like they didn't have enough film, and they realized, oh crap, we have got to drag this out. So it's about 21 minutes of confrontation, minor spoiler territories, confrontation with the killer, a fight, defeating the killer, running away, and then being chased again. And I think I timed it that it was 20 minutes.
Blimey.
And it's like Sean Cunningham was basically throwing this together, making his first film, but it's messy.
Although
And I think you can skip it and you can go straight to the gory glory of part 3 and then really appreciate part 4.
But then again, if you take out the first one, don't you take out a hell of a lot of the lore surrounding the first one? Because obviously, with it doesn't really start going until part 3. That's when you really get the Jason Voorhees that that people know and love today. But you need that first one, surely. I mean, just to build the lore up, because
You kind of do. I don't know that they ever do that much with that original lore. Like, it feels more like a curiosity for me. Like, what's a good equivalent? I don't know. Like watching a prequel for something. Prometheus, maybe something like that. It just it didn't. I think it's skippable. The lore is good, but ultimately, if you want the Friday the 13th experience, I think you can go straight for 3 or 4.
Yeah. I mean, if I still had the DVD, but the DVDs, admittedly, the first 2 probably aren't the first ones I go for, but just purely because of the fact that, like I say, Jason Voorhees doesn't really become that well-known character until the 3rd part. But would I Room 101 the first one? Probably not. Just because I think that film is key to, well, not only just the actual lore behind it, but also the opening scene in Scream.
True,
because the question wouldn't have been wrong. Jason. No, it was Mrs. Voorhees.
It's true. Okay.
Scream.
I mean, I just feel like it is. What in its original form, it is a kind of sloppy slashing that Scream mocks. That's my theory. I will die on. I will advise it as a curiosity for people, or better, to watch the 2009 remake.
Yeah, I do like the remake.
It's good to. All right, folks. All right.
Shall we talk about the film in question?
Let's do it. Let's do it, folks. Okay, so this was suggested by Empire. I like it. I do want to be doing viewer suggestions more regularly. Like, I don't know if every 5th or every 10th. It depends on the schedule. But I thought it's a nice idea, and I was very pleasantly surprised with it. However, I am going to have to issue the first trigger warning that we've ever given on the channel for 1 Hour Photo. So if you're sensitive, I'm sorry, I have to give a trigger warning for the misinformation about Neon Genesis Evangelion. This little kid, he describes the EVA clone units as good guys with swords. They do not have swords, that is well known.
Big silver swords, wouldn't it?
They are.
Yeah, that's mine.
Darn it, they are not good guys. That is disgraceful propaganda. This kid should not be allowed to mislead. I know many other weebs were rightfully upset and traumatized by that statement that went unchallenged.
Jumping straight into it, you know who this should have pissed off more than anyone else?
Okay, what? Robin Williams himself?
Robin Williams himself, because that boxed toy that he's got there is his boxed toy, because it was Neon Evangelion is one of his favorites, and it wasn't going to be part of the film, but he convinced the director to put the reference in there, and then brought in this box which is from his own collection, and had it featured in the film. And so you'd think that he would have been galled by the lack of attention to detail, shall we say, with that, or maybe he thought it was funny. I don't know, that he could trigger other fans of the franchise.
Wow,
it's a cute little bit of trivia. I was like, I don't know. Did you guys spend a lot of time trying to think about the symbolism of the Evangelion unit toy?
No,
I mean, I thought a lot about a lot of symbolism for a lot of different bits in this film. But Evangelion was, aside from it being there, I see the parallels not only to his own character, which I'm sure we'll get onto, but also Robin Williams' own personal life, because as we know, he suffered horrifically with depression behind the scenes, which of course led to his suicide eventually. So I like a lot of this film actually, because it's a serious film. I have not seen a great many of his serious films, but when I see it, I go, so like I was saying to a friend of mine yesterday when I watched it, and I was like, it's hard to tell at times in this film, knowing what we know now with the grace of retrospect, where the acting ends and where the man begins in some of those scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really telling, and it's quite, it adds an emotional punch to the film, which I don't necessarily think would have been there on release.
No, it certainly does. It certainly does. We should probably go over some of the basics of it. I'm assuming everyone has watched it. They did their horror homework. They're not going to be surprised when we spoil the entire film. But for the briefest overview, 1 hour, 30. I messed that up twice already. 1 hour, 30. Damn it! Someone else say the title.
1 hour
1
photo.
hour photo.
Nailed it. Made in 2002, directed and written by Mark Romanek, is, well, I'm not sure I would classify it as a horror, but I found a lot of it horrifying. And if the horror comes in, it comes in a bit later, but it is a very interesting effort. I'll give the briefest summary in that it is largely a character study of Cy, the photo guy, played by Robin Williams, who is a very lonely, very damaged and unsettling character who works in the photo development unit of effectively a giant shopping mart, a budget shopping mart. He becomes obsessed with a family, and we follow him as his obsession grows and interferes with both his life and theirs.
He also, just to correct someone in chat who said Reznor did the soundtrack, Reznor did a soundtrack for this film, which was then rejected by the director in favor of his own custom soundtrack. So there you go. He weren't happy with it, if I'm recalling correctly.
That is what I read, yes. It's I think Reznor got to use it later, and I could see why they went for him, but I suspect Trent Reznor would have made a soundtrack that's maybe a little too heavy, whereas what they went with felt subtle for a slightly more subtle film.
It was released on a future album of his, several of those tracks. Okay. Yeah. So this is Cy here. This is I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
Connie Nielsen, who you will know from Gladiator.
I haven't seen Gladiator.
Jesus, Mark.
For the film.
But yes, she's the wife of the in the family that he becomes obsessed with. The key part of the story and his connection to them is they are a very rich family, and this is also, I think the film is supposed to be set sort of a little bit back in time as well, and the sort of 90s rather than 2002, and so it's quite expensive to get a roll of film done. I think at one point he charges them, it's about $30 to get a roll of film done. So, and he's been doing their prints for basically the entire life of their kid, who we'll see later, no doubt. And so he feels that himself being a very lonely man, that he almost feels like Uncle Cy, he says at one point in the film. And he makes various statements throughout the film which are, I guess, related to his obsession, even though we don't really see it we don't see it on screen as much. For instance, the family goes away and we do see him drive up beside the house, and he has a fantasy of going into the house and looking at everything, and and sitting down and having a beer on the sofa, and then they come in and they treat him like family, and this kind of deep desire within himself for both acceptance with these people, even though he's scared of it, because he's scared of it in the scene. But this is a fantasy. He's just sitting there, but there's no real understanding of how far away he is from these people until later in the film, when it's revealed that he's traveling from the complete other side of the city all of the time, so that he can keep tabs on like whichever member of the family he's looking at the day, like the kid or the wife or whatever, and he's just sort of waiting and watching. He also has this enormous collage. Do you want to talk about the collage?
I would like to. I want to get in
Photo.
one thing though, just
Yeah,
kind of
sure.
interesting about the director, and I'll just talk about that while I get the collage up, because I think it's a good sign that we've both picked up on that as an absolutely amazing image for the film to use. So interestingly, this is the director's second film. He had a huge break between this and his first, which was called Static. And he did most of his work in music videos, but what I found really interesting was some of the other projects that Mark Romanek was going to do. I think this dude left a really big imprint on them, even though he didn't end up making them. So he was attached after this in 2002 to make The Strangers in 2006, and he ended up bailing on that because he wanted more budget. But I think you see in that the same sort of very still, very restrained, very sort of neutral, desaturated looking film, where it's really low key, and it's so much more effective for it. And he also was attached to do Never Let Me Go, the adaptation of the Kazuo Ishiguro novel. And again, he's left that, I feel he leaves that imprint of just this desaturated, low-key, but very impactful character performance-driven film. Like, I think this guy's really interesting as a director.
This apartment, by the way, is introduced to us through the film after we have a very protracted sequence with the family. What they call it? It begins with a Y, doesn't it? It's
Yorkin.
the Yorkin family.
Yorkin.
So the Yorkins, and we have this very protracted sequence where we see what the wife and the husband are getting up to. She then puts Mrs. Yorkin and puts the child to bed, and then has a bit of an argument with the husband a bit later on. But in this interim, we see Sai's apartment, because the young Master Yorkin says he's worried about Sai. He doesn't think that he has many friends and that sort of thing, and he doesn't want him to be lonely. And then we cut to Sai coming home, and this is very important because we've only ever seen Sai at work in his work uniform before, but he comes in and even his casual clothes are beige. Everything about this man is completely neutral color, and everything in his kitchen, he doesn't have colored tiles. He doesn't have, everything is, all his white goods are actually white. His kitchen is full of white appliances with white wallpaper. It's a small apartment. He has this one room that he sits in with Spartan furniture, and the only color in his life is coming from these photos on the wall, and it's very, very telling.
Brilliant observation. Yep. Go on, Haryan.
It's really sharply ironed, his clothes as well. It's almost like he's a bit of a neat freak. I do want to say go on.
Well, there's no personality in it. That's the important thing. Is that his entire personality is composed of his relationships, if you want to call them that, with what he refers to as his customers, which he gets corrected on by his boss. Those are Savmart's customers. And he's like, no, they're my customers. And he has this real personal connection because it's the only thing keeping him anchored to the world. Even in this scene, which we're looking at now, where he's watching television, he is idly flicking through because nothing is bringing him interest. Nothing brings him any satisfaction apart from this project that he has, basically.
I think it was quite telling that he didn't look at the photos at all in that scene.
No, he was just watching The Simpsons and he wasn't even laughing at
Yeah.
what is a funny scene.
Can we point out what a brilliant troll that Simpsons episode is, though?
It's the Cape Fear one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Now, this is something that threw me off, and I think it was really well done. So, Empire, absolute kudos. I really love this film. It's got so many great observations. So, I'm watching this, and I think probably like the rest of you, I was wondering what's going on beneath this surface. On the fact that they have, it does look quite menacing, really. We associate this wall of photos with a kind of serial killer getting all the newspaper clippings of his victims. And he's watching this Simpsons episode, which is explicitly referencing Cape Fear. And that whole, that's a story of a psychopathic individual stalking a well-off family who he's obsessed with. It was leading us to think that Cy has got this anger towards them, that he's a danger to them. And that is misleading us, but it is nicely done. It's very well observed.
Yes, if you caught that reference, yes.
I caught it straight away. I'm a connoisseur of The Simpsons. I was going to say as well though that this scene, it just reminded me of the guys really live in apartments like this and don't see any issue meme.
True.
Yeah,
I mean, you must have loved that they did the brilliant. I mean, two brilliant comparisons happened early on in the film. Is that you see the comparison of their home and his home, and you also see consistently something Empire highlighted for us is a saturation. He is so often completely desaturated, and then you go to their home life, and they've got these lovely warm color gradings.
It's vibrant.
It makes a point. It makes a point so well.
He's always got his curtains closed as well, so the only light in that room is shining on the photos.
Yeah, because it's supposed to give like the whole focus of the room is that.
I love how his flood lamps as well.
Sorry, because I did have to dip out for a second, but we're beyond that point now. But did anybody else think that the scene where his windscreen gets cracked was almost like symbolic of him beginning to crack himself?
I don't know. I think it's the sign of. It's one of those little things. I'd kind of forgotten about it till now, but you have this moment where he gets frustrated. I think it's a bit of a red herring in some ways, because he has that moment where he comes out and he goes, "That's just great," and it's like, oh, is there something angry under the surface? But I think it's also if you look back on it in retrospect, it's just a very mild reaction to what is a very frustrating sort of damage as well. So he's not actually that angry. He is someone who is full of misplaced care with no one to give it to. He does. So we had the scene with the Evangelion toy, and that is a scene where the kid wants the toy and he can't have it. So Cy takes the toy back and puts it back on the shelf. And what happens in reality is later on, Cy buys the toy and tries to give it to the kid. And we see the disconnect again, because the child knows that he doesn't really know Cy. Cy, for all of his good intentions, is still delusional that he has a place in this family above and beyond a store clerk, right?
Yeah.
And he buys this toy for the kid, and the kid's very, very awkward about it. He's like, I can't accept this, don't accept stuff from strangers, comes to mind. And you have to remember, when this film came out as well, in the context of both the UK and the US, I believe, there was a huge campaign which was, say no to strangers and that sort of thing. So it would have resonated on that kind of level of not just, well, this is a weird thing, we wouldn't have this anyway, but there was a nationwide campaign going on deliberately about this particular thing, especially when we find out that he's traveling, an hour every time to come and see this kid play, was it baseball or whatever?
It was
football.
Football,
it was
American
football.
style.
Football,
You'll also
okay.
have been
Football.
getting, in 2002, you'd have been getting PSAs in the cinema about internet grooming.
Yeah.
I have been trying to find some of them because they were so unbelievably creepy, and I wanted to do a topic on creepy PSAs. I have not been able to find them, but they were so good. Really unsettling.
Unfortunately, that's all the time I can give you this evening. But the other thing I will say, just ahead of time, I suppose, without saying too much as well, is that with the final scene in the film, as it were, connecting to the thing that he does over the affair, it was not that he wanted to. It's not that he didn't want to hurt them. It's that he wanted to hurt them in the worst way possible, and the way that he did that was that he replicated, even just in their perception, what had happened to him.
Yeah.
So it was not a. It wasn't. He wanted to hurt this person in such a way, but anyway.
No,
so that's
excellent reading, and we will get to that. But I'm glad you picked up on that and said that. That is how I read it too.
But
because I
been a
just took
pleasure.
pictures. I just took pictures.
It's a bit of, and also some things that he says throughout the film, of course, which are reference to things that you shouldn't do and that sort of thing. But yes, I'm going to leave you now. But thank you very much for having me on, and good luck with the rest of it. It's a great film. If you haven't seen it, please do. Fantastic, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Mark. I
Well,
hope to have you on again.
cheeseburgers.
Thanks, Steve.
Take it easy.
Take care. Bye.
See you now.
All right.
Bye.
Yes. We were only able to get Mark for an hour tonight due to a conflict of scheduling. Nevertheless, we have plenty more to say on this film.
Yes.
Something I suppose I wanted to throw out first, actually, I meant to ask earlier is, had you guys heard of this before? What was your experience with it?
I'd seen it when I'm pretty sure I saw this at cinemas when it first came out. I'm showing my age now. Yeah, loved it. This was one of the films, and I've made it, quite apparent that this was the film that I was looking forward to. When it was getting recommended in the early stages by Empire, I was like, yes, we need to look at this film. We definitely have to watch this film. I loved it, and it was definitely as good as the second time round.
I was just, yes, that's great. And Haryan?
I had never heard of this film before, and I didn't know what photo development was.
Oh my god!
I'm joking.
You had me there. You had me.
No, I remember my dad getting photos developed when I must have been 6 or something. Very young, anyway. But
I had photos developed in 2002, so no, 2003 was the last time I did it.
I mean, I would have been 7 then, so.
Saucy.
Think about that, yeah. Oh no! Oh no!
I did love it when Nina turned around and said, "Oh, I'm thinking about getting one of those newfangled digital cameras." Oh no, don't do that! I'll be out of a job.
Yeah. Well, that's foreshadowing.
Yeah,
there is. I mean, speaking of foreshadowing, we probably shouldn't forget that this film does something that I fully admit I am a complete sucker for. If you do this in your film, I'm probably bumping you up by at least one burger. It opens with a flash forward.
Oh yeah.
I'm shameless. I can't get enough of these. Pet Sematary remake started with a flash forward. Instantly, it's a 9 out of 10 for me. This is part of. They open with him being interrogated by a police officer and being asked why he did this terrible thing to the Yorkins, and all he wants to do is see his photos. I mean, this is one of many brilliant misdirects in the film that have you guessing about what Sai is about. I mean, did you have this too? What were you expecting him to do when you were watching this film?
I expected there to be a murder, to be honest. So I guess you could say my expectations were subverted by the end. Because he nicks the knife, obviously, and I'm like, oh, that's dangerous. Don't run with it. He's always got his bag on him as well, and you're never quite sure what's in it. Obviously, you know the knife's in it, but then he has his camera as well. But you don't really know what else is in it. And then he starts buying because he bought that picture of the old picture of the woman, and then he says it's his mother. He was just living a lie the whole time. So the whole time you don't actually know when he's telling the truth or not.
Yeah, it keeps you on edge, and I was feeling he's dangerous, and I was being led to feel he was dangerous. He's very tense. He's holding something back, and yet I was so happy to be consistently wrong in this film.
Yeah.
To not judge where it was going. I kind of thought it was going to do the standard stalker plot. So I thought it was just going to be escalating conflict, escalating obsession. He was going to break in. They were going to call the police were going to be useless, and we're going to end with a kind of kidnap scenario where he holds one of them hostage.
Yeah.
I've seen that plot many times. It's a fine plot. I was wrong. I was consistently wrong, and it was brilliant. I like being surprised without the rug being pulled out from under me, because they had given enough red herrings, but they weren't, I feel, cheating.
Yeah, I'd agree. Most of it's well within what he'd do as a character, I'd say. Though there is an issue with that, though we'll go into that a bit later when we get to it.
There are a few issues, definitely.
Yeah.
I got very annoyed with one massive editing error at the end. Okay, so we're skipping right forward just for the point of one error here.
Flash forward.
This is flash forward. Give me a burger for that one.
Yum yum.
So he's running down the circular sort of parking garage road to get out, and there's a van coming up in the other direction. And then we get a long shot of him continuing to run and spiral down. Oh, what a metaphor. And then the van never comes. Drove me mad.
Yeah.
I was like, no, hang on, that van should have met him, and it really annoyed me. I pick up on these things sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that, but I just took it as it just cut past it. So yeah, you don't. That editing didn't bother me too much, but I know what you mean. I can see why it would. So yeah.
Was there another edit that bothered people?
I can't think of any. Mine's a bit more plot wise, the mistake, but I think we'll get to it when we actually get to that part in the plot. So
okay.
Well, there's nothing really that stands out from when I watched it. Yeah, from an editing perspective.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was all well shot. As far as continuity, all seemed fine to me. Apart from that, obviously, but now that you mention it, yeah.
I mean, most of the time, it's a pretty simple plot, and the things that stuck with me were it was very realistic. It was very restrained. It was shot in this sort of very quite flat way that made Sai's life quite pitiable, and kept it tense. And though I really liked, as I mentioned, the use of saturation and desaturation to show you how empty his life is. There's a really dark bit where he's been fired and he's sitting on the bed crying, and then it's the bed in the store.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's so brutal. That is so brutal. And it kind of made me think that you get the impression that basically he does have nothing else in his life. His boss asks him why he's not taking any holiday, and he's just sort of, well, I guess I'll do that, but he's barely holding it together. And it's that sort of thing where he's constantly framed around this artificiality, this no life. He's only got his job, that I misread. Because I thought that the Evangelion toy was a reference to him being this corporate entity who doesn't really have a soul, who's just being used to, and is going to get very violent. Like, that's what the Eva clones are. They are corporate produced Evas. They have no soul at all, and they're just remotely controlled.
Okay.
I saw it more as him being a bit childlike, which I
also
argue he is. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, he kind of is, because like at the end where he says, "Oh, I bet you're a good dad," who basically subtly says what happened to him when he was younger, and
Yeah.
he seems to just have stuck in that regressive state. He's not really grown up since then. So
and that is something that, how can I say, I was watching the whole film wondering if they were going to go Nazi, if he was going to be a child predator. They put the signs out there, they tiptoed to it, and they make, like, I mean, Williams' performance, you can just, the way he's kind of got that permanent semi-grimace, that's so uncomfortable, and you just, I wonder if I did wonder if he was going that way. I assume, were you picking up on that as well?
Oh, definitely. Like the scene in the out in the fields when he's doing the football training, and he's just sitting there watching from the distance, and then that's the beauty of this film, is it pushes you and leads you in this sort of direction that he's going to do something menacing, and then just as you think it's going to go wrong, it pulls you back. So that scene when, you know, I can't accept the toy, you know, when Jacob couldn't accept the toy, you think at that moment, oh, you know, come to my car, I've got a present for you, and you're thinking, oh god, and it's just
very
innocent, and then it's just
white van type thing,
exactly, and it's just, oh, here's a toy, I got it for you because obviously, you know, your dad didn't get it for you, so I thought I would. And when he rejected him, you almost felt like, oh no, don't do that, but he just accepted it, and well, I say accepted it, but you know, he didn't lash out
he didn't
at Jacob. He just let him go, and was almost like, right, okay, I'll try again, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, the tension built for me then, because I was thinking, okay, that didn't happen. Like, okay, is he going to reach his breaking point then? Is it? It kept me guessing, and I thought they were going that way. Later, when he takes photos of his boss's daughter, I felt they were leaning on that again. They were raising that threat again.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's done straight after his little monologue saying snapshot is a hunting term. That's when I thought he was going a bit murdery more than noncy. I didn't really get nonce vibes, oddly enough, though.
Okay.
I think he just did it. I think he just did it to hack off the manager. I think that's literally all it was. I mean, and to raise attention to the police. I think he wanted to get caught in a way. Part of him wanted to get caught.
I don't know.
I mean,
it's a bit
of a stretch.
This is where my problem comes in. This bit, I don't see any reason for him to do any of this, and I don't know why you would, because he's really smart the rest of the time. He is actually smart. He's just got no social skills. And because just why would he threaten his boss? I didn't get the motivation for that at all.
Well, I mean, his boss did basically, for all intents and purposes, take away the one thing that kept him grounded, which was that job, because it removed him. Because essentially, while he was working at the Safe Mart, you know, he wasn't really. He had access to the Yorkin family. He was able to see them regularly. He was processing the photos. He was getting updates through his life. And then when that went, and then when he lost his job, you screwed with my life. Look at how easily I can screw with yours. Click, click, snapshot.
Yeah. You knew the losing of the job was going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then surely he'd know that. Well, obviously they had the argument about you can't shop here anymore. Oh, fine, do it this one time. But surely he knows that means the police are going to get to him after that. Like, I wouldn't have thought it's something Si would do, and it felt more like this the way they get the police into the film.
It is, essentially. Yeah. I mean, they could have cheated and used, not cheated. They could have used him stealing the knife to get police involved. But I do think they wanted to mislead you and make you think that he was, make you think he was a nonce. It was, they keep the nature of the threat ambiguous because ultimately he's not really a threat to them. He's well-intentioned. You see in that wonderful scene where he escalates to parking outside their house, and you've got the tension. Now, I did call that this was a dream sequence.
Oh, did you?
I thought so, mostly from the timing, but that scene of him being there and then they just welcome him was
that was
an interesting scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought I'd see Robin Williams taking a dump with a smile on his face.
Oh, no.
This was the film.
Oh. Yeah, that did make me chuckle, just sort of sitting there like, oh,
Yeah.
you're doing that. You're doing that.
He talks about a very sort of ecstatic dump in Fisher King from Terry Gilliam, but he doesn't do it on screen. So this one is the payoff you've been waiting for all this time. Yeah,
Amazing.
there's in the early part of the film. In the early part of the film, where you're seeing him just doing his daily stuff, I felt so sad for him. Like, I felt this kind of cringe tension where he's someone you're meant to know, but you really get the feeling from Mrs. York and Connie Nielsen, that sort of, which she doesn't really view him as a person. Did you get that vibe from her, that she doesn't see him on her level?
Yeah, well, she's just the photo guy to her. He's just the photo guy to her. She's like family to him. So yeah, the relationship's completely imbalanced because of his, I guess, mental health. Lack of social skills, and lack of all he sees is customers and his co-workers. That's it. That's his only kind of contact with the real world. So yeah. Which is what kind of pushed him over the edge when he finally gets fired, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he's doing a lot to try and keep this idea of a family in his head, such making extra copies of photos.
He gets the Deepak Chopra book. Is it Deepak Chopra book?
Yeah,
because he sees Nina with that book in the bag. He's trying to connect with the family, isn't he? Through complimenting the family to the dad, obviously trying to give the toy to the boy, the book with the mum. He's trying to find ways of getting past that. Oh, I'm just Cy the photo guy, because ultimately, he wants to be Uncle Cy. He wants to feel wanted. He wants to feel loved. He wants to feel important to people. But it's just that it's just not going to happen, because the world doesn't work like that. And Cy, unfortunately, is finding that out the hard way, because he makes all these attempts, and from the outside looking in, you're just sort of seeing this socially awkward, creepy guy just acting a bit uncomfortable, and it makes you feel uncomfortable. And it just makes you feel uncomfortable as well. So it just has that natural sort of, that need to reject almost. And I don't think he quite understands what's going on. Like, I mean, I'm sure we'll get to him, to Will in a bit with the whole two-timing, and how he reacts to that compared to Nina. It's just
this was a big thing, because of it says it at the beginning. Basically, you only take pictures of things you want to remember, so it will only be the good times. You don't take a snapshot of something that makes you sad.
Exactly.
So obviously he develops their photos of all the good parts in their life, so he has this kind of wrong impression of what they're actually like, which is why it's important to see them arguing at the start.
Yeah,
because obviously it's not what he thinks. It's not them, having fun in a pool. It's not them having fun at birthday parties, things like that. It's a lot of pain in the family. So when he finally realizes that, getting Maya's pictures and going through them, seeing. So I like that bit as well. What makes him go through those pictures is when she says, because I think she basically tips him off that kind of she only visits there, and then she's like, "Oh, I'll be around a lot longer." And then when Nina sees him with the book, and they mention coincidence, he's like, "Oh, he mentions a lot of coincidence, doesn't he?" I think he then wants to look at those pictures because he's like, "Oh, coincidence, like maybe." Something like that, because I can't remember any other reason he specifically went through her pictures, but that's when he obviously found out about the affair. Which I was going to say as well, she's like, in those photos, it looks like Maya's taking selfies, and then the one where they're, the main one he looks at where they're really getting off, it looks like someone else is taking a picture, which I found really weird. It reminded me of Oh,
It's
yeah.
possible.
It is possible, but it just reminded me of the meme where it's like, a young couple on the bed, like getting off, and then it goes to the next thing where it's a Wojak guy with a camera saying, "Can I go now?" It just reminded me of that. Yeah, I just thought it was weird that she was taking selfies, and then the last one she isn't. It's like, it's not a problem. It as you say, they're probably there with mates, and I wouldn't be surprised if they are. But I just thought it was funny.
Speaking of purveyors of filthy material, there's this guy.
Oh yeah, the amateur porn thing. Yeah.
Folks, I was watching this and just sort of, okay, that's kind of funny. Oh yeah, the amateur porn guy, he's a bit dodgy. It wasn't until I was just watching the credits and I see the name Jim Rash come up. I'm like, hang on, Jim Rash? Who the heck was Jim Rash? And then I had to look back and it's like, oh my gosh, this is him. This is Dean Pelton from Community. With hair. Oh my goodness. Like, this is one of the weirdest castings in a film that is full of some kind of fun bit players. Like, obviously, Gary Cole is the manager. Most of us will probably know him from The West Wing or Office Space. There's also, I'm sure everyone noticed, Agent Phil Coulson.
Yes.
Yeah. That was a treat. That was a big treat for me. I like these sort of minor actors getting into this film, and just it was a pleasure to catch them. But Jim Rash with hair completely surprised me.
Love it. Jim Rash, amateur porn.
Oh, of Dalmatians, who knows?
Yeah. And the only reason really that's put in is it's a bit of world building for a start, but then it's also there to set up a joke later when Yoshi goes up and he says, "Oh, Bill, I think you need to see this," and he basically says, "Oh, it's not the anal sex again, is it?"
Yeah.
Something like that. That's all that's in there for, and it's great.
Good old Chekhov's gun.
Yeah. It's an oddly judged film because for all his sort of sterileness, the film's got a bit of filth. There's a fair amount of bobs in there, and there's the reference like that. It's it's odd, like, because it makes it seem like when he's giving his description of the typical customers, like that's a fun scene to write, like getting to see from his point of view, from the typical worker. You're kind of interested. Oh yeah, what's their day like? And he gets to do that, and you think, actually, I feel like he is quite socially aware in a sense. Like he's able to read it, but it's just when he's dealing with the Yorkins, it's like that's where he's got the blind spot. He's got motivated reasoning, and he sort of looks past it. But he knows enough to get the Deepak Chopra book and try and use that as a way in.
I mean, he's not socially awkward when he's at his job, basically, but because he's not really socially awkward with them at his job. It's outside it where he's a bit weird because he follows them in the car. Obviously, he goes to the soccer practice. In the actual story, his social awkwardness comes from when he's just trying to do nice things for them, really. But with everyone else, obviously, it's just he's kind of just explaining things from his perspective. So it's like, baby and family pictures. Obviously, that's how he knows the Yorkins. Then it's amateur porn, holiday snaps, things like that. So he is kind of normal there, but I think that's just because he must have been in that job for over 20 years.
No, I think it was 11 years. He said he was
11
there.
years.
11 years, right?
So for that, that's just experience and maybe an understanding of the process. As opposed to, so again, it's routine, isn't it? He's been doing that day in, day out, so he's probably comfortable in those surroundings, interacting with people in similar positions to him, like he's his colleague in the photo booth. But again, when it comes to actual people that he's trying to form a bond with, he doesn't really know what to do. And so that's when that social awareness sort of starts to break down. But then, like, he'll have a conversation with the Asian guy, and it just seemed like a normal. Oh, it's my last day today. I've been fired. Like, oh my god, it just seemed like a normal conversation because it was just. I think if he doesn't feel a connection to those people emotionally, then perhaps that means to him that maybe he doesn't have to put as much effort in. And I think the more effort he puts in, the more likely it is to go wrong. And we're doing this scene, Albie.
Oh, we
Yeah.
could. I want to say, like, I noticed one thing, like the aspect of his personality where he flips out at the mechanic. Did you
the
notice
Agfa.
what? Yeah. Did you notice what his problem with the machine was?
It's too blue.
Yes.
I don't know why
Metaphor?
that's significant though.
Symbolism.
What does it symbolize?
The idea of it coming out too blue, too depressing. That's why you
Got
see
you,
it saturated.
That was too subtle for me.
Hey, I've got to get in my outrageous reaches. I've got the Evangelion symbolism. I've had Cape Fear was there to deliberately mislead you, and I've got that misread on a mechanical error.
Yeah, it works. It works.
I mean,
because like the opening dialogue at the beginning, you know, you only take pictures of the happy moments, and yeah, no, that works. If it's too blue, I had to throw it in. If it's too blue, then it's taking away that happiness of the image. So yeah, no, I agree, 100%. Even if it is by 0.3.
Yeah, it was 3 units or whatever. Yeah, or whatever the units are doesn't matter, obviously. But yeah, he's got. I mean, I don't whether necessarily it was because it was too depressing or not, or too blue. It just again put it in the fact that I know put it in the fact that he's a neat freak. So as I say, everything's ironed. His place is absolutely spotless. So I kind of took it that it was playing off that part of his character, but I like the. I mean, I wouldn't call it a reach. That's I think specifically it being blue is that's a deliberate choice, clearly. So I mean, this is why I like this film. There's things like that I miss, and the more I think about it, the more I like it. So
I mean, it's entirely possible equally that particular moment had multiple meanings attached to it.
Yeah.
So you both could be right in that respect. There's no reason to doubt either interpretation, because the guy clearly is a neat freak, and the guy clearly likes his pictures being happy.
He needs things orderly, and he's got that perfect vision, and it's that affair that destroys it, and then I think it's the affair that destroys it, and then he can't do the job. I love the characterization of this film. I mean, the things you realize when you have the knowledge that he drops in the final scene. Little stuff like, I started to wonder, because, I mean, if you haven't seen it, just to lay it out what we're talking about, I mean, we're spoiling the whole film, so don't worry about that. We already warned plenty. When he drops, admittedly, a fairly blunt monologue, I kind of would have liked them to lead up to it just a tiny bit more, because it does come a bit out of nowhere. He drops this sort of brief bit of invective where he talks about the awful people. Let me get the exact quote if I can. He says to the detective interviewing him that he can tell that the detective is a good father who would never take disgusting, sick, degrading pictures of his children, doing things children shouldn't do. So you are getting a pretty strong message here. Actually, the read of Robin Williams' character Cy is wrong. The read I had, my expectations were wrong. He is a victim, not a perpetrator. And you then start to think, hang on, did he take this job monitoring photos so he could look out for it?
Well, he does say when they're going through that's another reason they actually had the pornography bit in, because he's like, if there's any like rape or child porn, we have to tell the police straight away. So that you might be right there.
Probably.
I ended up thinking that's the whole reason he took it, was to watch out for it.
There's also perhaps the subtle cycle of violence, the cycle of violence in him growing up, having the horrible experiences that he had with these pictures being taken of him only to then grow up and become obsessed with pictures. Maybe, and this is more of a metaphorical link. If you think, if you can tell where I'm going with this, that the whole cycle of abuse. But instead, he's actually latched onto pictures instead. So yeah, morbid, but at the same time, at least he sort of directed his focus on something with less harm.
Yeah. Yeah. Shall we talk about the scene here?
Yes.
Dream sequence. Hey, Queen Boudica, how you doing? This is an odd one. It stands out. I mean, it's directed that it looks like it fits in very well. But it is quite atypical. We did have a fantasy sequence earlier, which sets up to be big creep, big tension, and then is subverted into this. It's a fantasy sequence where he's accepted as a member of the family. So we do have fantasy sequences in this, but this one is quite different. This one is bordering on the jump scare. Not quite. It's bordering on there, right?
It was an acceptable one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
I'll at
it's
least say
setting
that.
you up for it. It's not cheating to do it.
Yeah, well, yeah, something's obviously off. Well, there's no reason to be dressed like that in an empty aisle of what we assume is the same store. Yeah, it's obviously some sort of dream or, well, nightmare as it turns out. Yeah, so it focuses in on him, kind of gets to this point, then it focuses on his face, to which he then opens his eyes, and they're beyond bloodshot. They're red when he first opens them.
Yeah.
Then he covers his eyes and they start bleeding out. Which looks good. It was a good shot. And then he wakes up screaming, obviously. It's not part of the film I focused on really, but I'm kind of wondering why they put this bit in.
Do you want to take a shot at that Crown Guy?
Again, I think it was possibly to do with. I think it's misleading. Again, I think it was the misleading angle that they were going with throughout the film, because you're seeing him obviously going down a dark path with, just the fact that his life is sort of going a bit down the pan with losing the job, not being able to get acceptance from the Yorkins. And then I think you're almost going to get to a point where I can't remember. Does this happen before or after he finds out about Will?
I believe it is after.
After,
and I think that's quite important.
And and I think that's what takes him over the edge, because he's built up such a perfect picture of this family that he just cannot comprehend why Will is doing what he's doing, and that obviously sends him over the edge. And I think this is his rage and anger manifesting in his dreams. But the person watching this is, because of obviously what you hear about strangers and creepy people, you're almost led to believe like he's going to do something really, really horrific at this point now. And again, it's just setting you up and then backing away right as you get to the edge.
Yeah, it can be read as just like, oh, he's a crazy psycho person. Oh, look, he's seeing like horrible, violent imagery because he's a crazy psycho. And it's like, when you have the character knowledge, it's his problem for him is he's seen something that's destroying his fantasy, the thing he's relying on. So the problem is his eyes, what he's seen. So that's why his eyes are bloodshot, covered in blood, and he covers them up. He's trying to hold it back, and it bursts forth. Then,
and
the symbolism is all there. It's what he's seen that he wishes he could unsee.
And it's interesting as well that it's happening to him, and that it's not in this fantasy scene. It's not acting out on someone else. That it's him that's suffering, and so I think that's also quite telling about the kind of person that Cy Parish is.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I get another thing I guess you could say about this is this obviously after he's been fired, and basically his life, you could say, has fallen apart. But in this case, I think it's symbolizing just the emptiness in his life. All he's got is his perfectly sheen, empty, clean shelves going both sides of him, forward and backward. He's right in the middle of it. Just that's how empty his life is now. Then obviously he's seen something he wished he didn't, or something that's hurting him, and then obviously that's why his eyes go red, as we've been through. So yeah, nice bit of symbolism. You can I'll give you the themes for that one.
Oh, love a bit of themes. Love a bit of themes in these. Yeah, it's good. It is unconventional for this movie, but if it's good for escalating a bit, and I think as this is, I think, a fair bit more a thriller than a horror. It's fine to throw that in. Actually, it's fine to splash a bit of claret around.
Yeah.
Defo.
So we have this escalation. The whole film is escalation. It's him increasingly trying to get involved, getting closer, getting hurt, failing to cope, and it's just effectively all falling apart on him. And him seeing these photos just breaks him, pushes them over the end. He gets fired in a really quite tense scene with his boss, where his boss just calls out his lies and asks him what's going on. How do you feel about that one?
I mean, I really like that scene because Sai had pretty much every corner covered. The problem was that Bill kind of anticipated all that, and so when he had an excuse, it's like, oh, I knew when we moved him over he'd be bad at the maths. He's like, no, it goes way beyond just a simple mathematical error.
Yeah.
Are you saying it was unbelievable because he said the Asian couldn't do maths? Haryan.
I mean, that was hard to believe.
That's hard.
I mean, he had other like ways of trying to kind of talk his way out of it, but yeah, Bill just was having none of it. And then he obviously says the other things like, oh, you had an altercation with the machine guy. You've been giving away free cameras, which is not store policy, things like that. So he had more than enough reason to obviously fire him, which obviously Sai was hoping he could get away with, but yeah, obviously not. But the guy pays a lot of attention to detail, obviously. So that happening as well probably didn't help his mental state, which was already weak. So.
I mean, you can almost tell like the disbelief when he's like, your fire's like, no. Yeah. Brilliant.
Just how I don't want to keep saying it, but it's so well acted. Robin Williams, when he does serious acting, is incredible. He's so darn good.
Yeah, but it was like Mark said, it's knowing what was going on in Robin Williams' personal life. You kind of have to ask, at some points, was he acting? It almost
Sorry, man. Go ahead.
No. I was saying because at some points it just felt too genuine.
Yeah.
Too real.
Yeah, he had a lot of darkness to channel, and I think he did it amazing well. It's using his talents so well. There's more great symbolism here. When he's fired, he comes out. He's walking through the aisles. And it's like he's in a maze. He's making all these twists and turns that are completely unnecessary.
Yeah,
but you get the impression he's lost in there.
No, I saw that differently. So as he's leaving, if you notice, the initial aisles are quite happy, child friendly. It's all light and themed. And as he's going through the aisles, he's turning and turning and turning and going down aisles that are gradually getting a bit more dark, a bit more sinister. And then it's obviously that's where he then gets the knife. He's in the tools area now, and he gets the knife. And I loved that just that little bit when it goes from all this nice happy like kids friendly, and then it's like murder tools, murder kits,
At that point, based on the information we've got, we don't know what he's going to do still, but he's still being presented as a threat. He still could be a threat to the kid. You don't know.
I just love how the store shelves were just the representative of his downward spiral. Loved it.
Yes. I mean, you're being set at that. This is one of the marks of really good filmmaking, is that it's not that you can predict, but you are very aware of the impact of things. You can know in the logic of the film and the logic of the character, when this happens, oh gosh, that's going to mean this for that character.
Yeah.
So in contrast to, say, American Mary, when we were firmly in, well, I guess this might as well happen mode. Well, that was the problem. It's like, and then
Why
I
are
guess
people
this
dying
happens.
now? Yeah.
Yeah. I guess
Why-
he just beats up a tramp for no reason. Okay, cool.
Oh, they're swapping arms. Why? Oh, don't know.
Might as well. And
Also.
then you have in this, you know from his character, you know from everything in the film, how important this job is, and that this is the thing that holds him together, because the job gives him the chance to interact with the Yorkins. You've got that in your mind. That is so well spelled out that when he loses it, you know that is the last thing he has going for him. And likewise, when he messes with the photos for the Yorkins and slips Myers lewds with Mrs. Yorkin's husband into the Yorkins photos, you know that's going to cause a reaction. And the way it's shot, with him following them, knowing they've taken the photos back, predicting she's probably going to look like, I was waiting for the car to swerve when she noticed.
Yeah.
I loved that it flowed so well and was it had such a clear through line.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I like as well. After that, he spied on them through the window with his camera, as he does, and they're just having a normal family meal. And he's just like, "What the hell is wrong with these people?"
Yeah, again, another attempt to try and connect has failed. Because again, you sort of see that, and you think he's trying to destroy the family, but the way that I saw that was that he felt personally slighted by Will, and he saw them. He saw Will as a threat to the that family cohesion, and he wanted to get he called him Phil then. He wanted to get Will out of that environment, because no, damn it, Nina deserves better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't a case of that he wanted to be that guy.
No.
He wanted Nina to have a man who could, treat her right, and that wasn't him, but he wanted to almost orchestrate that. I don't think he would have minded personally, but equally, I think if he had his own, if he had the opportunity to give Nina something that Will couldn't, and if that was, I don't know, Haryan, if Haryan, you were that man, he would have been happy for you rather than envious, as long as you treated the people that he considered so important in his life right.
As long as I simp for the real queen, yes.
Exactly.
I'm not sure if Nina was a real queen. I mean, she was spending a heck of a lot.
On family photos.
But if we got together in a complaint, we got a balance. I will say I felt that the argument that Nina and Will have at the beginning was kind of bad. Because like her spending too much money is quite a legit complaint, and then it's kind of dropped and doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas like him being emotionally distant is the setup for the fact that he's having an affair, but it's kind of an odd one, even if it does serve the undermining of the idea that this is the model family.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why they put that argument in at the beginning, to create the, or to set it that actually, what you're seeing in the pictures isn't representative of reality. You've got a husband who's worrying about her wife's spending habits and a wife who's worrying about her husband's commitment. It did feel a little bit out of play. It did feel a little bit just sort of like out there, like it just happened. Because right up until the point where, when she's putting Jacob to bed, everything seemed fine. And then literally, boom, you're spending too much money. What do you mean? You're emotionally distant. It's like, where did that come from?
Yeah, that was a bit abrupt.
Yeah.
And that would be a thing I could probably fault the script with at that moment. And in the final scene, I felt it was just a bit abrupt, that it did just sort of get to its moment a bit too quick. I mean, this isn't a long film, so they had the time. It's only 96 minutes long. They could have taken another minute.
Rock gang.
Every time, guys.
Yes.
Yath Quinn.
Hey JFC, how you doing, mate? So we have got to. I mean, at this point, we've got him sort of in a quite clever way, setting up the confrontation that he thinks will resolve things. So by sort of revealing the affair to Nina, and that doesn't quite work. And then he realizes he's going to do a bit more. We get our wonderful cameo from Agent Coulson as one of the police, as he does his master plan. Would you like? Who wants to take the lead on that?
Oh, I'm just replying to Charity there because
I mean, yeah, I think it makes sense for the crime guy to take this one.
He finds out that Will's staying at this hotel with Maya, and he tracks him down, gets a room 519, so a few doors down. Pretends to be room service in order to find out the room that they're staying in. Quite clever. I thought it was quite cool. And then obviously pretends to be room service to get there, to get access into the room. Catches him in the act. There he is, brandishing a knife, and he then proceeds to tell them to get on the bed and get in various positions. And he was taking pictures. And of course, it was very, very menacing, very, very, frightening. Because again, this dude was, for all intents and purposes, you were led to believe that this guy is losing the plot big time, and you're thinking, oh God, he's going to do something horrific here, and then, he's going to kill him, and he even threatens to, quite menacingly as well. I might add.
Yeah,
and obviously
specific.
And while all that's going on, the police are, the police have obviously got wind of the police are involved now. The manager's daughter and the mum have been like taken to the mother-in-law's for a little while. They then find out about because obviously they raid the apartment that Cy lived in and found all of those pictures on the wall, with Will's face scratched out in each and every one of them. And so they alert Nina, who's then trying frantically to get in touch with Will. And it's quite funny actually, that bit when she's on the phone and she keeps getting put on hold by the intern there. And she's like, listen, Tristan, I know that Will's fucking male. Just find him for God's sake. I don't give a shit about that right now.
Really, yeah.
It's just like, oh, okay.
She's a lot calmer about it, yeah.
It's an unusual moment of levity. I found it quite brilliant that Cy, having worked in this customer service role the whole time, he just sort of had this sixth sense about how to work the system and how to get everything turned around, how to talk to people.
Yeah,
and get himself where he needed to be. I thought that was quite brilliant, the way he worked around everyone in customer service.
It's a trade. Well trained.
Yeah, you get into this scene, and again, I've talked about how this film sets you up to predict a thing, and then it goes in another direction because effectively we've been not cheatingly, honestly, given a set of preconceptions about Cy, and that's different to his actual character, his actual motivations. We might expect some kind of stabbing. We might expect him to want to take over Will's role. I was even unsure if he'd killed them when he was off in his room and the knife is sitting in the sink and it's clean. I was like, oh, well, he washed it, obviously, because he's a perfectionist and a neat freak, right?
Well, I took it as he didn't stab them. He didn't hurt them in any way. When you saw that, that was kind of when the film was saying to me, "Oh, they're not actually harmed." Because you're not going to get
guessing,
that,
right?
Yeah. There's no way you're going to get that sheeny shine on on a knife that's just been stabbed into someone. Oh.
No, it takes weeks of polishing afterwards, I find.
Exactly.
But okay, I mean, let's talk about the scene, because we might have a torture scene, we might have a beheading, we might have a stabbing.
We might have a cake cutting.
Yeah. As a source of horror, this thing where they're made to reenact these sort of sexual poses, where it makes it so mechanical. This thing that they were happily doing, now they're being forced to do it. Now it's shameful.
And they had to look happy while they were doing it.
It was like, I found this very unsettling. I found it very horrifying in the best way. Like this, I'm coming here to be scared and slightly disturbed, and it worked. It was done very seriously. There's a film I'd like us to cover that is sort of touches on similar territory, and it's a difficult vibe, making sexual horror. But for anyone who's seen it, Knock Knock does sort of similar things.
Right.
I'd say this is probably a bit more effective in the sort of one scene it does it in. But yeah, I found it really disturbing.
It's really dark, isn't it? It's bad. I mean, just from the psychological aspect, powerful. And again, he's just so convincing in the role. It's unbelievable. Like, if you haven't seen this film, you have to watch it, because Robin Williams, of course, everyone knows him as the funny man. Everyone knows him as the genie from Aladdin, or Peter Pan from Hook, or Jack from the film called Jack.
Mrs.
Doubtfire, of course. He's known as a funny man, but my God, he can do serious acting, and he does it. This is him at his best. I'm sorry. Yeah, he's a funny man, and he was talented in that regard. But he could have made 100 films like this, and he would have been brilliant each and every time.
Well, he does well in this. I'm quite old. I'm familiar with him dropping these super serious films occasionally. So, Chat, you might be aware of Awakenings, Good Morning Vietnam, Fisher King. In the last two, actually, he channels his kind of typical manic energy character a little bit. They're kind of vehicles for him to do that. But your Awakenings and Insomnia, he's doing these dark performances where he just shuts it off, and you see what a masterful actor he is when he embodies his completely different character. And we're also aware that from the point of Psy is the way he is because he was abused, because he was forced to do these awful things himself. I'm going to avoid dropping comparisons here. There are others, but it's rare subject matter. You're then aware from the character's point of view, and this is something that Mark brought up before he had to go. In his mind, you might think he's letting them off, he's not stabbing them. No, for Psy, he is doing the worst thing he could do to them.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Oof.
Yeah, he's trying to make them feel how he feels, basically. Though I don't think it'll ever be the same as getting adults to do it rather than a kid.
No, but he's...
It's the humiliation, it's the degradation, it's the knowing that they'll live with that for the rest of their lives. I mean, it's easy to just, poke them a few times and leave them there to be found, by a poor maid, just, doing the, cleaning out the room. But it's a completely another thing for them to live with that shame and that humiliation. So yeah, he would know that his characters lived it and living it.
And at the same time, because he's he's misguided. He's a very dark character. He's got his demons, but he's not an evil person, because as you see in the end, he did not take the photos.
Oh, brilliant.
He did not
Yeah.
actually take those photos. This is beautiful character judgment.
And it's kind of foreshadowed in a way, because when he's getting arrested, he just says, I just took photos. And he did.
Oh.
But he didn't take photos of them. I just took photos. I love that.
I imagine that would also have been his father's defense, assuming he got caught for what he did to Sai.
Well,
but
then it would be, I just took
like-
photos of the boy.
yeah.
I-
But I mean that might be why that was his first reaction to say as well. But yeah, he didn't. I mean,
No,
gonna
that's
say,
no,
I was-
actually, no, I see what you mean. Yeah. No, I see what you mean. Absolutely.
I was about to say he didn't technically do anything wrong, but he did threaten to stab them. So
Cy Parish did
Jesus,
nothing
that
wrong.
stream match.
So obviously I didn't actually say that. I said I was about to, and then I realised it would have been really stupid.
Good catch. Yeah, it's good. It's misleading. I mean, this whole film is a beautiful bit of misdirection. I never felt cheated. I finished it, and then I had a sort of nice period of just reflecting on it and thinking back to everything I'd seen in this new light with this new information.
Yeah.
Hey, Charlie Chieftain, how you doing? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. We've got a good one. We have got a good one this week. We are definitely doing viewer suggestions again. Empire 2.0. You nailed it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a harrowing scene, and ultimately you do come away thinking you don't feel cheated that he didn't kill them. Yeah, the reveal is doled out quite nicely.
You're almost relieved as well.
You are relieved, I think. I don't want him to be a bad person.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
If anything, what he does cements him as a good person, you know?
In a harsh way, a certain sort of avenging angel, kind of like the Eva clone units, if you will.
Funny, though.
Yeah. I'm determined that that's going to mean something. Oh, you know what? I'd actually got in my notes here that I should ask Mark if Asuka is best girl or Rey.
Ooh.
We'll never find out. We'll never
No.
find out.
Well, we can just raid AA stream afterwards and ask the question. Although you have to pay him to ask the question.
And then you have to wait around until 2 a.m. to get it read.
Bless him.
Alas, no, I'll ambush Mark on his own stream next. I've been sitting on this absolutely terrible pun that I was going to drop on him, and I keep forgetting to do it, so I will have to do it on Monday. You have after that a sort of a chase sequence, which I'll be honest, I could sort of, I could give or take. I would be absolutely fine if he was just captured in the hotel room, having sort of done his bit. But it does.
Well,
questionable. Maya is an underrated best girl, I would say. What?
She's a thought.
Homewrecker.
Maya's not a thought. She's in love with a thought.
She's literally sleeping with a married man. That's uber
No,
thoughty
that's
behaviour.
Misato.
Wait,
That's
I'm confused.
Misato.
Williams also has a role in the Law and Order SVU as an engineer who outsmarts the Shrek's Crimes Unit Season 9 authority. Interesting.
Huh.
Sure.
This is some good trivia, guys.
Nice.
I think he was, oh gosh, I could be wrong on this. I believe he also had a role, one of his very serious roles in Homicide: Life on the Street, and I believe he was the father of a murdered girl, and I may have gotten an award for it.
Wow.
But again, another one of his just heartbreaking, haunting roles. So yeah, sorry. We get this chase sequence. It could have been cut out entirely, but this is only a 96-minute film, so let's not complain.
I did find
don't
it funny when he ran through the conference room.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
In fairness, it was worth the laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you needed the scene to show that he wasn't planning on getting caught. But then that annoys me before, because why would he threaten his boss if he knows the police are going to be after him after that?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be it's really obvious that he's after Will, because he's scratched all his faces on the pictures of his collage. So it's not like it'd be hard to find him.
I think he maybe wanted to scare the heck out of Will and then scare him into going back, like knowing that he's been caught, that he has to be the good dad again. But it's a bit hard. But I think that chase sequence is there mainly to play up against the tension with the detective searching and for you to not know what's been done. So I forgive it. It works. It increased the tension. And we got the delicious symbolism of him running around the circular ramp in the car park, aka literally spiraling down. And when he is caught, it's so beautiful. The lights are on him, he's on his knees, it's just his face illuminated. I just thought that was such a beautiful shot.
Oh yeah. Again, it's just a really well done film. I can't praise it enough.
Yeah. I have been shamelessly recommending it to people. You just say, "Oh, hey, you gotta watch this. This was so good. This is so good." Yeah, and that basically, well, Will ends up going back to his family. He's taken in. How did we feel about that?
No.
No.
Didn't like that.
Rejected.
It's incredible that the guy who is the biggest douchebag to his family is accepted in, and yet here was Sai, who was trying everything to be that, not just the photo guy, but Sai the nice guy, and constantly getting knocked back. It's the nice guys finish last meme, if you will.
Sorry, I'm being pestered by a cat who wants to come in.
Same.
There we go. Yeah, Gatsby doesn't approve either. He thought... I think Gatsby's take is that ultimately it's kind of a attempt at a touching moment, that the reality of Will's life being threatened actually brought it home, that actually, okay, he was an idiot, he cheated, he shouldn't have cheated, but I'm so glad he's alive. That sort of intense experience brought them together.
Well, even then, throughout the whole film, I don't think she was ever going to leave him.
No.
Because obviously, after she finds out, they just have the normal family meal and they act like nothing happens. There's
no conflict there. There's no conflict resolution. It's just, oh no, swerve a car a bit. Oh, I'm looking at this picture. Oh, it's so sad. Oh well, anyway, but better go home, put the kettle on, and get the dinner ready.
Well, I just felt like she was sticking with him for Jake, the kid. So
yeah, but
it is hard to know because we're shut out of it and we only see it from Sai's point of view.
True.
Yeah. Which is kind of clever
interesting.
Going.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because it could be, serving up the dinner and be like, so, Will, there's your potatoes, and I saw the pictures today. Oh, you're banging Maya, are you? Oh, no, don't say that in front of the kid. No, the kid saw him as well. Jacob saw him. We're both disgusted with you. Get out of my house.
Here's your food, Jake, and here's mine. And no, Daddy's not going to be eating. I believe he's already eaten out today. Isn't that right, dear?
Yeah. And
What?
Laugh, Haryan, laugh.
I am.
But yeah, so it could have been exactly like that. But like you say, because you're seeing it from Sai's perspective, all he's seeing is a happy family meal. Yeah.
Which caused him to flip out, and yeah, she might have been saving it for a very tense conversation afterwards, but
never got
he
the
doesn't
chance.
know. Yeah, I go for it. It's a tough one, but I think ultimately I might forgive it if it kind of helps Sai by giving him what he wants, which is them to be together and to be happy. And we end up with the interrogation scene, the one that kind of gives you the whole new look on the film. The basically the scene. Well, I suppose only Usual Suspects has a final scene that has a similar effect.
Right.
It completely changes the meaning of the entire movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, I did say I do feel his. Okay, I've got a slight problem with the writing. I have no problem with the delivery of any of this, but I will note that we are introduced in the initial scene in the interview with a phrase like "your lawyer will be here in like 13 minutes or 30 minutes," and then presumably they start talking and recount the entire film, and you then get to the end and the lawyer's still not there, so they've just been talking, and I'm like, But this isn't CinemaSins, so we don't care. It's fine. But we will give it a quick. I hope the mic picked that up. Anyway,
It did.
Good. And I didn't want to go too hard because I don't want to spill the martini.
I mean, we're keeping it consistent our end as well. You know, we've been talking about the film, and we've now been running for longer than the film, so
nice.
That makes our criticism invalid. That's the only thing I've learned from EFAP.
And funnily enough,
that don't like EFAP.
And funnily enough, the solicitor's still not here.
Shocking stuff. So we get that. That's a minor quibble, and it felt like we just wanted to launch into it. And I can buy that Sai had this sort of confession eating him up inside that is so bad that he doesn't even want to acknowledge it. He doesn't want to say it directly, but he will insinuate it. I do feel that he gets to it a bit too quickly, and I would like it to sort of be a response to something a bit more relevant. But you could say it's something that is so painful in him that it basically he just gets that out because he has to, because he's dying to. Rory Herbert, it is not a popcorn martini. I'm going with a Gibson. A Gibson, if you have not tried it, is a very dry martini. It's sort of about half the amount of vermouth you would normally use, and go for very dry vermouth. And then instead of, say, olives, you have a couple of cocktail onions and a splash of onion brine. It's an unusual drink. It's an acquired taste, but I'd recommend it.
It's not quite my cup of tea, but you do you.
One day we're going to meet up. We're going to have cocktails, and I'll have to get you both a Gibson to give it a go.
Gib.
I just want to eat one of your chickens, to be honest. But all right.
Oh no! Savagery.
I'm never letting it go.
Harry, you a legs or breast man?
I was gonna say fannies, but never mind.
On the family stream. Jesus.
I was talking about chicken.
Keep the spice down, especially if it's peri peri.
No, I'm addressing Susan Majewski.
Oh right,
yeah. So I'm talking about chickens.
In Minecraft.
How did you feel? Did you think the confession came out okay? Was it a bit rushed? I
didn't have too much of an issue with it. It felt almost like the older the dream sequence bit where the blood just comes rushing out. It almost felt like he was desperate to get it out, but like you said, it was almost like he didn't want to acknowledge it. But then as soon as it started to happen, boom, it just and you were like, right, now we know why he kind of is the way he is.
Yeah.
I loved it. Again, it's another brilliant. It was just a brilliant performance, and I think. Then again, like again, going back to it, what Mark said earlier on, knowing what we know now about the pain that he was going through, like the depression and obviously the mental health issues he had, it's unsurprising that he was able to channel such a character in what looked like at the time such an authentic way. And actually, when you look back on it, probably a lot of it was from personal experience that he was able to draw those feelings and those emotions and portray that onto the big screen. It just worked so well for me.
Yeah. I'll go for an oblique spoiler, but are you familiar with The Wire season 4?
No.
Nope.
All
You can
right.
still spoil it.
Yeah, go for it.
I will.
It's what we do.
Okay. There is a moment. Basically, there's a character who's very troubled, and effectively, it's revealed that his problem is he was nonced upon. And then there's one of the most satisfying nonce hunts in TV history. Yeah, and yeah, and then the way that's dealt with is sort of, it's quite revealing of the character who dishes out the punishment. That you realize, like, oh, hang on, this character who's actually a complete brute, absolute savage enforcer, you start to think, like, hang on, oh gosh, like Richard's got it. He was extremely keen to sort that out, and it's sort of, it's subtle, you could miss it easily, but it is very well delivered as quite a sensitive revelation about a very difficult topic.
Right.
Yeah, so it kind of made me think of that, actually. I mean, I'm not saying that the confession at the end is not subtle. It is unmissable. It is a focal point of the film, but it's also not gratuitous. And I liked that. I thought that was very well judged.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So, I mean, at that point, we're at the end of the film. And
Well, the very last scene is kind of, it zooms out on a picture of the family, but it's got Cy with Will with his arm around Cy and he's smiling. I mean, that's obviously fantasy, but it's kind of just, again, making the point of this is all he wanted, by the way. Yeah, which is pretty sad. But
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good way to end it. You don't have an easy answer at all. But yeah, I just spent the next few hours after watching it kind of unraveling it and rethinking it, and having thoughts like, oh my gosh, this is why he wanted to work as a phototext, so he could, like, be on the lookout for this. This is why he was so concerned about it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why it's worth a second watch, because this is my first watch through, and I didn't pick up on that. But now that you mentioned it, it's like, well, that makes perfect sense, and it's not, it's not obvious or.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, he's gone. He doesn't get a pun.
Oh, boo. But yeah, it's very subtle. That's so subtle. It's not even mentioned really. That's kind of something you work out yourself, but. Yeah, whether it's intentional or not, you don't know. But so much of this film feels intentional that even that is probably intentional as well. So, yeah, it's a lot of neat things in this film. 9 burgers, maybe 10
out of 12.
Out of 12, yeah.
Okay. With cheese, I would assume.
With cheese, obviously, yeah.
Okay.
This film earned its cheese, yeah.
Yeah. That crime guy? How would you score it?
11 with
Yeah.
cheese and a nice dollop of ketchup in between.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Oh.
I don't think I could call it a horror, but I can absolutely say it had horrifying scenes,
Mm.
and it was. I don't want it to be a horror. I think it's beautiful as this ambiguous thing. It could have pushed horror very hard, and to do that, it would have had to have cheated us.
Mm.
Instead, it delicately misled us.
Yeah.
And
I like the direction they went with this film because, like you say, they could have so easily made this a horror film by sending Cy Parish over the edge and doing some really sick stuff and quite horrific stuff. But again, the walking towards the cliff and then sort of just taking a step back right at the edge, it just works so well and perfectly cast as well in terms of in terms of Cy. And I thought, it was well acted throughout, and I can't believe that it's been about like nearly 20 years since I first watched this, and I actually came into it with such a different perspective because I was quite young when I first saw this, and so I didn't really think much of it. I just thought, creepy guy, and it was like you say, I spent probably about a good couple of hours just sort of unpacking the film and really thinking about it, and then I came to the conclusion Cy Parish did nothing wrong. I don't care that he put a knife to a woman's throat and threatened to gut her. No, he did nothing wrong. He was defending his family's honor.
You take that back, Haryan. Cy Parish did nothing wrong. His methods are unconventional, but by God, he gets results.
Yep. Exactly.
So I disavow. I personally think violence against women is wrong. Call me a cook, but
how are you going to tame that queen? I didn't give a score. It's a solid 10 for me.
Yes.
It's a 10 or an 11. So let's say a 10 with cheese. Maybe it is an 11. I could recommend this to pretty much anyone. I think it's an 11. I could recommend this film to anyone to bring them into horror. If I needed to make the case to someone that horror is worth watching, it would be I could do it with this. I'll also offer up a challenge, folks. If we class this as a horror, try and come up with another horror in which no one dies. I can give you precisely one at the moment.
The Exorcist. No, The Exorcist. Poltergeist.
Nope. Ooh.
I don't think anybody. If memory serves, I don't think anybody dies in that. I could be wrong.
One of the assistants of the. Did one of the assistants die?
Let me have a look.
You might be right on that. I was going to go with Dark Water.
Okay.
Was the only other one I know.
Actors died in Poltergeist. I think there was a bit of a. Oh, right. Okay. 4. Okay. Right. So 4 actors died within a 6-year span following the original film's release.
Okay.
So the film's cursed.
Oh no.
Right. Okay.
There's
So
I've got. So do you remember the sort of paranormal investigator medium woman from Poltergeist?
Yes.
I mean, she's fairly unforgettable. She turns up, of all people, in this wonderful meta film called Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. I've got it on our list because it's basically like Scream. It is a deconstruction. It's a lot more academic about it, but it's full of insider references. It's absolutely wonderful. She pops up in it, and I could not have been more surprised, but from the voice, there's no mistaking it was her.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think I'm coming away with an 11. I can quibble bits. I'm a gore hound. I always want a bit more blood. So it'll be an 11 with cheese for me, mostly because I love the character work and I could show it to anyone. Hey, James Silver, how you doing?
Hey.
In at the end, we're pretty much finishing, but it's always good to see, man. I have been filming stuff for the chicken stream.
Whetting Haryan's appetite.
I might get more. Yeah, people, get your ratings in. I'm seeing 11, 10 and a half with cheese. Yeah. I'm seeing 10 with cheese. It's pretty good.
It was
Yeah,
bloody good.
It was a good film, yeah.
I love the recommendation.
Well done, that Empire. Well done.
Empire nailed it. Very good. Very, very welcome. Very welcome. And folks, if you want to suggest a film for us to watch, then and review, the best place to do it is on my Twitter, which I am going to try and get up now, and awkwardly type while I do so. I'm going to get that up on the screen. You can also find me on Minds, and I announce everything there. So if you just leave a comment on there, I do have a pinned post, I think, where you can see. Sorry, it's a pinned post where you can leave a recommendation. So you'll be very welcome to do so there. I don't think we will. It'll probably be a few weeks until we do another viewer recommendation. But if they're anywhere near as good as this, we are definitely going to do more of them.
Excellent. It's what I like to hear.
Yes. This was a very good pick.
Yes, absolutely.
I was so good. And with that, in terms of channel news, I have got my CPU installed. I have been going back through some of the footage that I filmed, and it's kind of weird looking at it after such a gap, but I'm working on editing some of the stuff I prepped. So it will come out as sort of bonuses as and when. And for next week's stream, crikey. For next week's stream, we did have a guest planned to discuss Army of Darkness. He cannot make it. We've rescheduled for 1 week in the future. So I will announce horror homework tomorrow. If you want to get the horror homework, of course, the best place to see it is on Minds, where I'm Proper Horror Show, or on Twitter. And I linked my Twitter handle, so you can find me there. So we will announce horror homework tomorrow. It might be something very modern, or I'm kind of feeling a bit of a craving to do a bit of a classic, maybe go 60s. I don't know. But I'll discuss it backstage with Haryan and that crime guy, and we will announce it probably tomorrow. But yeah, I'd probably call it a draw for tonight. I'd like to give thanks to Mark for turning up for the first half. I will hopefully have him back because I thought he had some good insights there. He'd done his trivia research. I always like to see that, and good takes on it. And absolutely thanks to that crime guy and Haryan.
It's a pleasure as always.
Oh yeah.
Yes. I'm enjoying my education on horror films thus far.
What I am working up to is eventually we'll be able to get you to do a top 5.
Yes.
We'll get there. We're getting
Good.
some.
Why
some
not?
suggestions. White Noise, I'm tempted by. Descent is on the list.
Ooh.
And we do have someone lined up to talk Descent. So, House of 1,000 Corpses, I was going to do when I get my 1,000 subscribers. As like 1,000 subscribers, 1,000 corpses cross. And if you want to make that happen, do me a favor. Share links to the channel. Anyone you think might be interested and like what we do here, send them a link and ask them to subscribe, or give me a go at least. And hopefully we'll reach that 1,000 subscriber milestone that much closer. Richard Orrit, The Frighteners, absolutely. That is on the list. We want to cover that.
Yes.
We do. I'm
Absolutely, yeah.
I like these forgotten films. I'll do a little spoiler. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but I got a little obsessed with the idea of like these hyper-specific horrors. And I got interested in like dentist-based horror. I found 3 dentistry-based horrors. And they're all sort of from the 90s, so it's kind of like a horror danger zone for quality. You're really taking a risk if you go mid-90s, but there's Brian Yuzna's The Dentist, the Dentist 2, and the inspiringly named Dr. Giggles.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. What can I say? Well, I don't know if I can convince the guys to give those a go, but I'll try at least one of them out and see if they have any legs to them. But yeah, I've sort of rambled a bit there, folks. Do you guys have anything to shill?
You first, Haryan?
All right. Today I came out with a video covering some of the U.S. Army's new recruitment videos.
Oh,
couple
God,
of them,
yes.
couple of them pretty good.
Oh.
Couple of them are pretty good, to be honest. The others, god awful.
I've seen the good ones so far. I've got a bit caught up, but I need to finish off watching that today. But yeah, the first two were all right, actually.
Yeah. The third one was okay as well. But she just had a load of pointless details that were kind of woke, and then the last two, it's just like, what the hell is going on? Well, the last one's a bit woke, but then it's just really cringe because it's just her singing throughout, and it's like, what is going on? But yeah, the first two were good. The last two were just awful, and the middle one's a bit middly. But it's just like you can just tell that they're gonna focus on the woke ones from then on.
Right? Are they as entertaining as the CIA one?
I think the CIA one was much worse, I'd say.
Wow.
The CIA one was just pure woke, whereas these ones at least try and make it like obvious where their army skills come in or why they joined the army. Whereas obviously with the CIA one, it's like, I've got 2 kids, single mom. She's wearing the feminist shirt the whole time.
Right.
It's that is way worse.
Right.
But it's still like worth covering just because it's funny.
Yeah.
So that, I'll have another video on anything else that annoys me this week, and then it's my 50th episode of Laughing at the Guardian this Saturday, and it will be the 2nd anniversary of it as well. I have no idea who's going to be on at the moment because I've completely forgot to get guests. I was thinking of getting Sargon, but I think it's too short notice for him, so we'll try and get him another time. So it's probably just going to be quite a chill one. You know, that's how I'm coming into my 50th one in the 2nd year in, so nothing too special, but start of the weekend, so yay.
Very good.
Yes.
And that crime guy, I know you dropped a video today.
I did. I did do a live stream last night where we finished off the CSI Deadly Intent gameplay. I had to cut a few minutes of it out though for copyright because Sen, bless him. To be fair, the music we were playing was supposed to be copyright, but somehow 5 minutes worth got sort of tagged by some group, I don't know. So I had to cut about 5 minutes out, but thankfully it was 5 minutes of me trying to match a piece of string to a scarf. And so for me, the most frustrating 5 minutes was thankfully cut out, which should hopefully make it less frustrating for you if you decide to watch it. But yeah, it was kind of internet historian themed in terms of the background music. So definitely check it out for that. But as you say, yeah, I also dropped a video today. If you're familiar with UK crime, you might be aware of a case that took place back in the 1980s, the Brink's-Mat gold bullion robbery. So this was the largest robbery of gold bullion that I believe to this day has taken place in the UK. At the time, £26 million worth of gold was stolen, which equated to about 3 tons worth of gold bullion. So much gold was stolen, right, that it actually pushed up the price of gold in the country because that much was taken, which ironically made the stolen gold worth that bit more as well. I think it added about an extra £3 million to it. So it's worth about 76 million to this day. But rather than focus on that specific case, I wanted to look at the aftermath because obviously when you steal that much gold, it's very hard to shift it. And so the people that were involved in this Brink's-Mat robbery brought in outsiders. And naturally that brought people that they didn't know, didn't trust. And over the course of 3-4 decades, people have been dying or going missing in mysterious circumstances, you know, betrayal, paranoia, revenge. And
reporting on Hillary Clinton.
basically. So I focused on one specific case, and that was the case of Brian Perry, who may or may not have been cursed by the gold. In 2001, November time, he was gunned down outside his offices by a masked man, by a man in a balaclava. And to this day, the case remains unsolved, despite two suspects being fingered for the crime, but they were let off. But go and have a look at it. And there is a long form video coming out next week as well, which I wanted to get out this week, but IRL commitments prevented me from doing so. Hence why you got Brian Perry this week. Sorry to ramble, but it was I really found it interesting, and the response for it as well. I think I might go a bit more deep diving into the actual Brinksmack case itself at some point.
Nice. All right, fantastic. Yeah, highly recommended, folks. Haryan and That Crime Guy are here every week doing horror homework, being absolute champions. So if you haven't already checked them out, then give them a sub and a trial, even if you're primarily here for horror. It's all very welcome. And with that, I'm probably going to draw it to a close. And thank you all for watching live. Thank you all for watching on the repeat. And thanks again to my co-hosts, That Crime Guy and Haryan.
All right.
And
thanks for having me on.
Until next time, take care.